Hey everyone. Hope you had a great weekend. In terms of news, it wasn't really all that eventful in terms of things that we didn't already know, but I got a new setup. So if some things are not quite as smooth or I need to log in here and there, hopefully I've got everything good. But just in case, I may need a couple seconds here and there to look at things that aren't exactly where they need to be. So nothing earth shattering, nothing really changed, nothing that we didn't really know about the world happened over the weekend. And so markets are free to move along and trade as they might normally. What we are seeing though is a shift in movement in money. So let's take a look at that and what's going on in the futures. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. So what we were looking at before the weekend is that we remained for the later half of the week in this tight trading range between the EMA 20 and the MA 50. Let me see if I can zoom in on that a little bit. So we were really seeing this kind of bouncing movement consolidating in between the MA 50 and MA 20 or EMA 8. And that's going to be really important to watch. So far, let's take a look at futures. All right, so futures are up. Futures are up actually pretty significantly. Not like super significantly, it's just not random. Okay, so S&P is up about 0.5%. Dow is up about a little more than 0.5%, and the Nasdaq is up 0.36%. So especially in the Dow and the S&P, we have a non-random movement. Nasdaq is lagging behind a little bit. So once again, we see that separation between the Dow futures and the Nasdaq futures, with Nasdaq lagging behind it. That tells me that even though everything is up and everything on the surface looks optimistic, there is a separation between the riskier stocks in the Nasdaq and the slow and steady Dow Jones stocks or blue chip stocks. So we are still seeing a appetite shift towards more conservative, more defensive sectors. So that means even though we are opening up, we want to watch very carefully and see if we start moving down during the day. And if we do, then we're going to have more downward pressure. So we're just going to have to watch very carefully. We'll open up a little bit and we want to see if we break below, especially if we break below that EMA 8, then this is pretty much confirmed that we're on a downward slope and that we're going to continue. Right, so like that. Okay. So with these two bars right here, it looks very likely that we'll come down and visit that MA 150 and then revisit the lows. And by that time, perhaps the MA 200 would be up around the same level. And that is looking a little more likely this morning. But of course, if we open up and remain strong, then we want to see if we hit that MA 50 and how we react to it. Okay, so it's going to be very careful to be very important to watch what happens today. Let's see what else. Let's look at crude. Crude is up. Okay, so that's not too surprising. We're going to be looking at the XLE energy sectors. It's above its MA 50 right now. What we want to see is if our low remains above that MA 50 today, and then we will be pretty much in the clear to move up towards the highs. And with everything happening in the Middle East, it's pretty likely that we're going to move up. So one of the places where we're going to be looking for opportunity on the swing trade side is in the energy sector. All right, and let's take a look at treasuries. What are treasuries doing? Okay, treasuries are, this is a 2-day view. Okay, there we go. So treasuries are down. All right, so yield's increasing. Looks like the bond market is doing the Fed's job for it. So as long as the bond market keeps trading down on its own, we're still going to be very unlikely that the Fed has to take any action. And so most likely interest rates will stay flat. All right. So let's take a look at the sectors. So on Friday, what we saw is that with the later actions on Thursday, Friday, XLU moved towards the top along with XLE towards the beginning of the week. SMH was leading the entire week until then. And we had XHB fall from grace from the very top all the way to basically the very bottom and losing some money right here. So money definitely came out of more of the real estate and then went into more defensive areas, out of technology and out of semiconductors and started moving towards utilities. We saw a pretty significant movement upwards in materials. So we really wanted to see how utilities and materials also, not materials, staples. We want to see how these two perform today. So today is going to be a lot of let's see what happens this session, right? We want to see if XLP continues this green bar upwards beyond the EMA 8. We want to see if XLU breaks above that EMA 20. We want to see if the S&P breaks below the EMA 8, and if not, then how close we can get towards the MA 50. So this week, if we look at our economic calendar, it's looking pretty light. It's compared to last week. So we do have a couple of these red reports here, but in terms of heavy economic data, things that traders will pay attention to that might move the markets, even though these are marked red. Yes, retail sales usually does have the potential to move markets. It doesn't necessarily always, but it does give you an indicator of what's happening in the economy. Jobless claims happens every single week, and they've been very predictable. So this probably won't move the markets all that much. Existing home sales won't. So none of this really, maybe retail sales, none of this is going to be super significant. Jerome Powell speaking on Thursday. Maybe, depends on what he says. But overall, not a lot of economic news. So our focus is going to be on earnings. So a lot of things will depend on how well earnings are being perceived. So if you see a lot of companies jump up on their off after their earnings announcements, then we'll start to see this creeping up towards the MA 50. But today, especially if we see companies announcing that and the market isn't reacting well to their earnings, then we'll see this breakdown below the EMA 8. So earnings are going to be the main focus this week. And we want to see if we get money rotated into the energy sector, the utility sector, and the staple sector. So in terms of day trading, ones we want to pay attention today is Lulu. So Microsoft acquired Activision. They've announced that deal is complete. So later this week, the S&P 500 is going to have to replace Activision because the symbol is going to go away. And they've announced that it's going to be Lululemon. So you see this surge up in price of Lululemon and just very steady upward motion pre-market. And so this one's going to be one to watch. And if it continues higher, okay, so if we break out of these levels, then that might be something that we could go into because this has been a very steady trend pre-market. And if that continues, then that would be a good day trade. Of course, people could be taking profits right here also. So so just watch out. We could move towards this lower line as well. We're also, so there, Something similar happened in Hub. Okay, so Hubble, but I'd say there would be a lot more interest in Lulu, and I don't want to play the same theme in two different symbols on a day trade. I'd rather see different sectors, different moves. That way, uh, if Lulu starts moving, I want it to move independent of the other ones that I'm watching. Otherwise, if two or three start moving at the same time, I'm only going to be able to capture one of them. So I want to try to mix things up and randomize them so that if one moves, um, then I can capture it, and then the other one moves, and I have more opportunities to trade throughout the day. So here, instead, I'm going to go with Pfizer. Pfizer is in a completely different sector. Pfizer also had an earnings announcement, and there's obviously some interest in it. So the announcement came on Friday after market, I guess, because there's a huge drop off right here after a very muted trading into earnings. And so you see that huge volatility pickup, and then it's since recovered and gone above in the pre-market. So that's really interesting. So there's definitely a lot of movement, a lot of activity in Pfizer, and we are definitely interested in watching that for day trade potential. And then I'm going to go with the ones that have been really active and have given us a lot of good trades over the last week. And so those are Tesla. Tesla is almost always on the list. And then that's not Tesla. There we go. And then another one that has been around quite a bit lately is Palantir. So we will take a look. We'll be watching Palantir as well. Okay, so one last thing before I let you guys go and start preparing for the opening of the market is if you took my suggestion on Friday and hedge yourself over the weekend, then what we want to do is see if we want to take those hedges off, right? So generally, we would wait at least half an hour into the market because there's a lot of fluctuations that happen at the open, and you don't necessarily get a very clear direction of where the market is going to move. So in general, the opening bell is a lot of activity. That activity tends to weigh a little bit more heavily on the retail side. There is definitely institutional money being invested or removed from the market at that time, but it's very retail heavy. And then institutions and professionals generally wait towards the end of the day to start allocating their money. And part of the reason is they have to worry about cash flows. So money coming in, money going out. So they are managing a fund, and any participant in that fund may say, hey, I'm going to take my money out of the fund, or hey, I want to invest more money in your fund. And they will aggregate that net cash and invest it towards the end of the day. So the last hour is a very heavy institutional trading. So if you're in any of my classes, you might notice that the majority of our trading and the majority of our signals we take at the end of the day and not randomly throughout the day or in the beginning of the day. The vast majority happen at the end of the day. So you want to wait beyond that initial half-hour trading period and get a feel of what you believe the market is going to do, and then decide whether you're going to take off your hedges or keep them on, or keep your hedges and take off some of your positions. Today, if we start heading downwards, so we open higher and start heading downwards, I'm going to keep my hedges, and I might consider taking profits on some of my long positions. And that will start to shift my portfolio towards a short bias. Or if over the weekend I have some shorts that I've been eyeballing and I think look really juicy, then I'm going to start adding those shorts. And that will give my portfolio a more negative bias. But then if it's the futures open up and they start trading higher and higher, and I believe that we can approach, at the very least, approach that MA50, then what I'll do is I'll remove my hedges. And then I might put them back on as we hit the MA50 because I'm uncertain if we'll bounce back down off of it or if we can break through it. So just be aware that if you hedge your portfolio, you want to make sure you actually want to keep those hedges during this trading session. Otherwise, your portfolio is not going to make any money or lose any money. It's just going to sit there, and you might as well be in cash. Okay. All right, guys. Good luck trading today. Remember, earnings focused. So this week we're going to be taking a look at a lot of earnings trades. But otherwise, have a great day, have a great trading session, and I will see you in the aftermarket.